All right, guys, back here on Southeastern 14 with Max Barr, and we are sharing our reaction to a very predictable Saturday in SEC basketball. There were no surprises. We got everything right on our picks. I don't think we missed one, right, Max? I mean, we got all our picks right.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
um, we'll get to that in just a bit. But before we do that, let me tell you about our friends over at Bet Online. And yes, this is me, scrambling to try to find the actual read here. But Max can laugh because he knows I do this every time. He used to Chris doing the read, so I'm like, well, Chris isn't on. Gonna find the read. But NFL playoffs right around the corner. Week 18 action actually today as we're recording this. NBA season also in full swing, and of course our friends at Bet Online have you covered with all the up to the second odds, news, and scores. The additional odds, lines, trends, and info, you can find them both on desktop and mobile. You can access, their world-renowned wagering information anytime. So head there today, betonline.ag, get into the action, and see all the updated odds on all these games. And remember, use that promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline is where the game starts. All right. So we made all those jokes about getting our picks right and everything, but this was such an interesting day of action, Max. And rather than just do like we'll maybe do this at the end in terms of like talking about what on earth did we learn here. But let's just get into the games because we're going to talk about each one of these games. And we start with one that we all got wrong, which that will maybe a theme here on a couple of these. But South Carolina. But let me just say this real quick, okay? We have our fun, and we had fun on Twitter yesterday, especially with the Auburn Arkansas game. But trust me, I say this all the time. If we were going to get all of our picks right, Max is great, Chris is great. I would not be working here if we were going to get all of our picks right, because you know what? That means I could accurately see the future. I would be living in Las Vegas right now. I'd be going and betting on every game out there and just raking in the dough. But unfortunately, Max, we're not that good. So it's fine. We got this one wrong though. South Carolina 68, Mississippi State 62. The Gamecocks. How about that? I mean, this is a big win. Like we said, this was a huge game for South Carolina because everybody had kind of talked about going in the non-conference schedule, all of that. We, in certain areas had our doubts if they could kind of keep this thing going, and it's only one game. But hey, I thought, again, I told you this, I tweeted it out, for them to win a game like this against what I still think is a good Mississippi State team, to do it with Talon Cooper and BJ Mack going 2 of 15 from the floor combined, which means that Meechie Johnson stepped up, Miles Studi stepped up. You had your big four. I mean, those guys, and as you're going to talk about, I know Cooper helped out in other areas as well, and so did Mack. But man, this was a really good win for South Carolina. Mississippi State shoots 3 of 13 from three. That was one of those things that when I talk about, I feel like some teams offensively are going to take a step back. When you start getting to SEC play, you start to play different type of teams, and the physicality ramps up a little bit. Although Mississippi State's always been a team that can handle that, but a lot of things in this game just went in South Carolina's favor, and got off to a slow start. Only had 6 points 10 minutes through the first half, but Gamecocks take a win here, Max.
I like how you mentioned the slow start there real quick, 'cause that's what I was going to touch on first. You watch the first 5-10 minutes of this game, and you're like, oh gosh, this is just going to be a dominance by physicality and getting low post position. I mean, the first 5-10 minutes, Tolu Smith had like, I don't know how many post position entry passes where he just had to like turn around and he's under the rim. What a response from South Carolina. I loved the fight. I thought the guys that they brought off the bench, Colin Murray Boyles, Zachary Davis with 9 points, 4 rebounds for him. Besides Cooper, the turnovers were a little bit of a problem, but Talon Cooper, 4 points, not his best offensive night, but 7 assists, only 1 turnover. That is exactly what they were looking for when they brought him in from Minnesota. I mean, what an opening game. This was scrappy. There was a lot of fouls both ways. We were talking about this right before we started recording, Blake, just the amount of weird and wacky fouls like late in games and stuff like that.
A
Lot of them. You could tell it was opening day here. A little bit of jitters and starting to adjust to the physicality of SEC play. Kind of a choppy game both sides. But my gosh, we tweeted I think it was last week, is this the new norm in Columbia, with Lamont Paris? Is this the new normal? And we had a bunch of comments saying, well, I'm going to pump the brakes on that. I take your foot off the brakes here because this team is legit.
I mean, look, one of my 2 bold predictions. The other one we're going to talk about in a minute. I don't know if I feel as strongly about that after this team's first performance in SEC play. But look, I said, I mean, South Carolina was making the NCAA tournament. Hey, I feel a little bit better about it now. They got a lot of wins to get from here on out. And that's why I want to reiterate. Like the reason I feel like sometimes, game 1 of conference slate is always just the most unpredictable because you've not seen these teams, play each other yet, right? Like you've seen the non-conference portion. We talked about like stats can be a little inflated just based on the opponent and all that. But once you actually see teams and how they handle these kind of situations against, better competition, like it's always, you definitely take stuff away from that and you sort of learn a lot more about a team. And I thought this was just a huge win. And also like give South Carolina credit in terms of like the fan support, because I always say that too, right? Like that it was good atmosphere. And it's not been easy for that fan base to get invested into their basketball program in recent years, just due to the lack of success. Basically, since that Final Four run they made, a while back, and so a good win for South Carolina. I still think Mississippi State's pretty good. It's just hey, this was a lot more about South Carolina, I thought. So, all right. Let's go to the next one. And by the way, South Carolina winning, like our power rankings this week are going to be an absolute it's going to be fantastic to see where everyone ranks all these teams, because I am just going to be it's the most exciting week of power rankings we've had yet, like because there's going to be a lot of movement, and I'm curious to see where we all kind of wind up in terms of the our individual votes in the composite rankings. So, all right, the next one was kind of the high profile game. We talked a lot about Kentucky 87, Florida 85. We said it, Max. This is going to be a high scoring game. It got there with these two. You would know more than I would from the betting standpoint if this thing hit the over. But I assume it did.
It did.
Yeah. 87, 85. So, I mean, I don't even know where you start with this game. Like, this was, I know you've got a stat coming. And I will just say that, look, you're talking to the hedge guy, right? Like, Hoop Southbound show, I picked Florida. Our show, I picked Kentucky. That was a couple days later. I said, the more I look at this game, I just feel like I trust Kentucky more in the spot. And I know, again, their first true road game, canceling out the Louisville game in that scenario. But man, I say the same thing. And I know on the broadcast, like Billis and who else was calling it? Pointing out,
he's the other ball guy.
Schulman.
Schulman.
Yeah. I know they're pointing out, like at one point and throughout the game, as Florida's lead starts to, go up a little bit, because I think they were up by as many as 11 in the first half. I think they specifically said the phrase, Kentucky's freshmen look like freshmen today. And they did for a lot of points in that game. Like, they look like freshmen. They were making, uncharacteristic mistakes. It's even the little things, right? It's like Reed Sheppard missing a couple free throws, like all those kind of things. You're just like, yeah, like, maybe it's just not Kentucky's day, right? Like maybe the freshmen they're not able to kind of rise to the occasion here. And, this Florida's game. But I just go back to the same thing. What happened after that? Like, great crowd, great atmosphere. Kentucky finds its composure. The young guys start to step up and make big plays down the stretch, which combined with the older experience of an Antonio Reeves and Trey Mitchell, who both had really good games. But specifically, you had Wagner, you had Bradshaw make some big plays, you had Sheppard make some big plays. Even Dillingham and Edwards, who only had 6 apiece. It's just like these guys in these moments, they always rise to the occasion. And yeah, it was sloppy for a while there, but this is why I like this Kentucky team so much, is that all the momentum was in Florida's favor. And yet Kentucky they kept kind of chipping away. And look, I mean, this is one of the reasons why we've been so high on Kentucky, is like for them to go in and win a game like this, where you could probably say for the majority of the game, Florida was the better team. But Kentucky just made the winning plays. They just found a way, and there's a lot of these freshmen stepping up and making big plays. On the Florida side, real quick, I know we were kind of texting about it at halftime. It's like, boy, Florida, They look fantastic. But you and I said the same thing in our text thread. It was like, yes, but that's probably the best half that Florida's played all season. Can they replicate this? And the point I was going to make, and I think I may have said this in our group chat, was Florida hit 8 threes in the first half. And I think even Cal said it, right? They're talking about the broadcast. Like Cal even
Yeah.
said, these guys can't play any better. And it was just, and here's the thing, like statistically, they hit 8 threes in the first half. There's only 3 games this season that they had hit more than 8 threes in an entire game. And so second half, what was it, Max? They go 1 of 11
He's
from
1 of 11,
3.
yeah.
Yeah. And so again, it just kind of the law of averages come back. That helps Kentucky kind of stay in the game. And yeah, man, this was a great game. Like these are 2 fantastic teams at their best. And I think Florida stock has to go up from here. But what a great win for Kentucky.
I have written my first note on this on my breakdown of this game is it possible for both teams to win? And I feel bad that Florida wasn't able to walk away with a win. That atmosphere was phenomenal. And I mean, sometimes when you're at home, the ball is just, falling your way. 2 banked threes in the first half.
Yeah.
I was like, what the heck is going on? This game is insane. We told you to tune into this one. The pace was high. It lived up to the billing. If this is any indication of what the top half of the SEC is going to look like, with your teams that really play at a higher pace, man, are we in for a wild ride. We were right on this game in our preview. I said I think the rebounding numbers are off. If you look at the full season numbers compared to when they have Bradshaw and Ugana in the game, it's night and day. And I mean, Florida, wins the rebounding battle by 3. It's pretty much dead even the whole game. And that's without Adu Thiero, who's arguably one of your best rebounders. So I thought Kentucky was great on the glass. If you watched Coach Cal's post-game press conference, he goes, Florida's really good. We got lucky. And I like how he just comes right out and says that. This Florida team played a phenomenal first half. And the young freshmen had to battle through and change kind of how they were playing mid-game, which is very hard to do. Cal said Rob Dillingham was terrible. He said that. He goes, he was terrible, but I still played him because I know his competitive spirit, he's going to try to win. Same with Bradshaw. Bradshaw was getting bullied in the beginning by Samuel and Han-Logden. Bullied. And then he makes the winning plays at the end. Yeah, that 3 by Bradshaw, top of the key, sealed. That was the game right there. So I think you saw great maturity on both sides. Is anybody more cool, calm, and collected than Zion Pullen? I mean, oh my God, guy just in total control. I thought it was great to see Kugel break out of his shooting slump, although the foul trouble was annoying if you want to put it that way. But yeah, I mean, just I hate to have a team lose this game because of how great it was from an entertainment standpoint. And you mentioned my stat. Shout out, I forget what I think it's like Steel City Gator on Twitter came out with this stat. And I was stunned. I was like, I knew it was bad, but I didn't know it was this bad. Todd Golden now in his Florida tenure, year and 2 months into his tenure, he is 1-15 against the Ken Pom top 50, 0-3 this year. I mean, those are some jarring numbers. He's come very close, but just has not been able to win those big games yet. And that's really something to look at. Moving forward, they go to Ole Miss on Wednesday now to Florida, and both of those teams need a win. They don't, you don't want to start 0-2. But man, what a game, Blake! What a game.
Well, and to add to that, like statistically, we kind of tied this into the South Carolina game, but if you're Florida and you know that Will Richard's going to go 0 of 7 from 3, have his worst shooting game of the season,
yeah,
and Tyrese Samuel's going to have his worst scoring output of the season, and you're still going to be right there,
there
with a chance to win. And again, and probably a lot of people's might feel like you should have won the game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good. Like you said, it's not fun to lose, and no moral victories probably in the SEC right now, but still, like, that is something you can build off of, because again, we talk about like making those winning plays. There were a lot of plays that you feel like Florida made that were winning plays, like towards the end there. It's just that Kentucky happened to get that extra, opportunity, and they took advantage of it and won the game. And you may have mentioned it, but we've talked about so many stats. I mean, Kentucky winning the game going 5 of 20 from three, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it. That's one of the top 3 shooting teams in the country to this point. Didn't really make a lot of shots, and that's not unexpected when you go on the road.
Right.
But yeah, like both these teams, I feel like, yes, have to come out feeling really good about themselves. Of course, it feels like a missed opportunity for Florida, but as we said, the Gators have been playing very, very well over the past month. And now that they've got their full group in place, and there's maybe another team that is definitely sliding out of what we perceive to be a top 5 spot in the SEC, I think Florida is right there with an opportunity to take that spot in terms of being a top 5 team in the league. And I think you saw them kind of battle, Kentucky to the wire here and have a great chance to win this one. So really like the guard group for Florida. Kugel stepping up, making shots, as you said, good development. And so, yeah, feel really good about both these teams moving forward. And for Kentucky to get a win, like you mentioned, even with Cal State, hey, some of these guys played bad, but they still contributed a little bit, and all that adds up to be able to win a game like this. So huge win for Kentucky. Still, if I'm a Florida fan, I'm feeling pretty good about things. So,
Real
all right.
quick before we move
Yeah.
on, Blake, just looking down the road, I think Lenardi this past week had Florida as a 10 seed.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're now maybe put them at an 11 or 10 seed, if you're in March Madness and you get matched up against this team as a 10 seed, that is brutal.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, right? Is I think for Florida, the biggest thing to focus on now is like you got to find some good wins because
Yeah.
they just don't have those in terms of like resume building wins right now. Because right, like theoretically, you would have thought Michigan would be, but it's not. They're 6-8.
Yep.
So yeah, like you've got to start finding wins somewhere. Although again, strength of schedule is going to help you, but it's just this is where the next group of games are pretty interesting because they go to Ole Miss on Wednesday, Arkansas at home, which sorry is not a good win anymore. It's just not right now. I don't have to say it right. I mean,
Yeah.
Arkansas. We'll talk about them in a minute, but they're sub 100 in the net now. Like so,
Yep.
it's not a great win. So, yeah, and then of course they go to Tennessee and all that. So yeah, Florida. I'm looking at their schedule here, and they get Missouri twice, they get Vanderbilt twice. So that's not ideal because, in all honesty, those are the 2 bottom teams in the SEC right now. So yeah, they've got to pick up some wins. And again, this is where you've kind of got that opportunity here over the next couple of months to do that. So we'll see what happens there. All right. Speaking of Missouri, oh boy, Georgia 75, Missouri 68. Oh, what do you know? Another one that all of us got wrong. I think we all picked Missouri.
Yeah, and I said
So
confidently too.
Oh, you said confidently. I was not as confident, but we all picked Missouri. So let's call it what it
Way
is. We got
off.
this one wrong too. Missouri was favored in this game. So again, it's not like we
Yeah.
were picking just randomly. We picked the team that was the favorite. So I mean, look, I know Missouri fans are frustrated because I saw it on Twitter yesterday, and understandable. I get it, all that. They just are not. They do not pack the offensive punch that they did last year. And I've said that so many times where I'm like, I don't know how else to say it. And we've mentioned kind of the Caleb Grill effect, not having him, and just how that makes them a little bit different on both sides of the floor. They just cannot, they don't have enough scoring consistency. They're not as deep. I mean, we're seeing it, right? Like you want to talk about a glaring thing that we're just not used to seeing. Dennis Gates plays essentially 6 guys yesterday.
Yeah.
6. He is not someone who
Barely
regularly
6.
plays. Yeah, barely. Like, I mean, Martin played what, 12? So, I mean, he basically rolled with starting 5, and that was it. And again, that is not something that Dennis Gates wants to do or usually does in any way, shape, or form. Like, look at the numbers. Like, he likes to have a lot of guys playing. They just have not been able to get that production from top to bottom, and that has been the difference. They don't shoot it as well. So you can't make up for that with some of your defensive deficiencies that this team clearly still has. Georgia goes 12 of 28 from 3. Again, that is just something where Georgia, I don't know if you know the stat, Max. Like Georgia's now hit double-digit threes in 3 straight games.
I was going to
And I
say
know
that.
two of those against North Florida, Alabama, A&M, but I mean, 11, and they shot 55%, 42%, 43% from 3 in 3 straight games. So if Georgia's hitting threes, look out because, that's pretty good for what is a team that I think to this point has kind of relied maybe more so on its defensive skill set than it has his offensive skill set. But I talked about all the stuff with Missouri. It's a great win for Georgia because now their winning streak's up to 9, fifth longest active winning streak in the country. Are any of those against NCAA tournament teams? Probably not, but it doesn't matter right now
Yep.
because it's just winning games. And hey, they're 11-3. I said it. Keep in mind, this program completely bottomed out 2 years ago, 6-26. They won 16 games last year. They've already got to 11, and they've still got what? I don't know, 20 games to go. And so credit to Mike White for what he's
Yeah.
done with this program. They may not feel like an NCAA tournament team right now, but I'll tell you this, they're moving up in our power rankings this week. And bravo, Georgia, because this was a game that, again, tough to go on the road and win a game like this, but they made that huge run in the first half, got up by 17. And even when Missouri came back and took the lead midway through the second half, Georgia makes the plays. And again, the 3-point shot winds up being a great advantage here for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, Mike White said in his post-game presser, he said, we hit timely threes. It wasn't just we hit threes. They came at the perfect times, right? And that's what you got to do to win on the road. You got to make the right play at the right time. And I would like to see them not, let up that big lead. But hey, a win is a win, and you find a way to get it done, right? We have not given Russel Tchewa enough credit here. We just have not. I mean, and a great performance. Now, does Missouri have a phenomenal rim protection? No, but Aiden Shaw's got a great block rate and can hold his own. Mike White said Tchewa has the best conditioning on the whole team. Said every time they do a conditioning drill in practice, Tchewa finishes first, and that's at 7 foot 280, right? So if they're going to start getting 30 minutes a game out of this guy, as long as he defends without fouling, and man, you got the two seniors, Thomason and Abdur Rahim, who kind of lead that perimeter attack. And geez, this team is quietly just getting the job done. Before we move on, we got to talk about Sean East. I've been giving him love this whole time. There's really no guard depth now without Caleb Grill, and it doesn't matter. East plays all 40 minutes, 18 points, 8 assists, 0 turnovers. He needs some help. He can't do it all himself. But geez, I mean, next up for Georgia, you get Arkansas at home, and very winnable. I mean, this team could just keep extending this winning streak, and we might have just been sleeping on them this whole time, Blake.
Yeah, I mean, again, they got a great chance to keep this thing going based on the next game we're about to talk about. So, and let's say they win that game, right? You go on the next Saturday with a home game against Tennessee, like that
becomes a
game.
huge game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I said, Mike White, man, I always said it at Florida. I just think it was maybe the wrong job at the wrong time. In terms of like having to follow Billy Donovan and, had success, but just was never going to be able to rival the success that Billy Donovan had, winning back-to-back national championships. Still thought he did a good job. Still think he's a good coach. You can ask any coach out there. They always say the same thing about Mike White. Like, I just think people don't realize how good of a coach he is. And again, if you watched the downfall of the Georgia basketball program and you see where it is now to where it was
It's
2 years
incredible.
ago, it is a remarkable turnaround. Long way to go in the season, but you will certainly feel really good about where Georgia's at with a 9-game winning streak now, heading into the second game of conference play. So, all right. Oh, boy. Auburn won 83-51 over Arkansas. Let's move on to Alabama and Vanderbilt. So we did. We had our fun with this on Twitter. Yes.
Yeah.
I told you, I said, Max, you got to pull a clip. Pull the clip of me saying, as soon as the words came out of Chris's mouth that he was picking Arkansas, I'm like, uh-oh. Like, we all just picked Arkansas. It's over. Like, Auburn, congratulations. You are the champion of this particular basketball game, because I just knew. I was like, if one of us picked the other way, I'm like, okay, now who knows how this game plays out. But as soon as Chris picked Arkansas, I'm like, we're toast. Little did we know, though, even if we all thought that Auburn had a great chance of winning this game and we regretted not picking them, none of us could have projected this to be the outcome. A 32-point win at Bud Walton Arena. And there was I think it was an Arkansas fan, replied yesterday and said, please do not pick us again. I said, you do not have to worry about that. I'm sorry, but like, it's just, this was kind of the last stand with Arkansas, right? Because we said it felt like they were starting to get some things together after that UNC Wilmington win. Had a 3-game winning streak, come in, great opportunity to prove themselves at home. Knew what the environment would be. I just like, this was, I mean, there's no, we're not overstating this, but the worst performance of the Eric Musselman era for Arkansas. Easily. It's not even close. And I don't know what to say that, comes across as maybe a little too harsh. But if you watch the game, you probably know how this thing played out, and you know exactly kind of how this thing unfolded in the second half, because there was absolutely no reason for this to be a 32-point loss for Arkansas. None at all. Auburn is a great basketball team. And everything I've said about Tennessee and Kentucky being 1A and 1B, scrap it, because it's 1A, 1B, 1C now with Auburn.
Yep.
They're the top 3 teams in the SEC, and take your pick on whoever's after that, because these are 3 legitimate Final Four type teams. And again, Mac, it's kind of going back to what we said. When we talked about Auburn, and I said, hey, if you're filling out a bracket right now, and you just advance teams based off of stats, you're going to advance Auburn a long way, because they were completely balanced. They were in the top 20 in KenPom offensive and defensive efficiency. Now, guess what? They are in the top 10 in offensive and defensive efficiency. They've gone from top 20, which I think they were like 15 and 20, to now they're 10 in offensive efficiency, 8 in defensive efficiency after this dominant performance. So, like, they are a legitimate Final Four type team based on everything we've seen to this point. And which, again, makes it even sillier that we all did not pick them. But we could not have predicted this kind of just domination in this performance. And again, I know there's talking points on both sides, but I don't want to go so far in the direction of being like, what on earth happened to Arkansas? Because I think that's unfair to Auburn just coming out and completely just putting the hammer down here and kind of flexing and saying, hey, time to start putting us in the mix for like Final Four national championship type team, perhaps.
Yeah, I tweeted yesterday, get your Auburn futures in. Get them, because this is the best price you're going to get. I rewatched our preview video, and in my breakdown, I just list off reason after reason why Auburn's going to win this game.
I feel like we all did. Like, it's just we did the same thing. We just picked Arkansas. So.
And then I just go, it's Bud Walton Arena. It's Bud Walton.
Yeah, right.
Well, not anymore. I feel like there's a legitimate crack in the armor of that fortress that Bud Walton Arena is. But I think you have to, as poor as the Arkansas performance was, you have to credit Auburn here for the dominance. You look at those first 5 minutes and you're like, oh my gosh, Arkansas might win this game. This place is rocking. The Auburn offense is all out of sorts. And what a response from that second unit that comes in, that KD Johnson, Trey Donaldson, the Chad basket maker Mazara, they come in off that second line and are almost better than the first line. Bruce Pearl said in his press conference, he goes, he got asked a question. He goes, what do you have to say about the depth of your team and how good the bench is? And Bruce Pearl goes, I don't know if our bench is so good or our starters aren't good. And I just thought that was funny. I mean, they legitimately have 10 starters on this team, and that's scary because that's what you need on the road. You come out first 5 minutes, the starters don't have the juice, and you have a whole new unit that can come in with energy, that sees what's going out on the court and adjusts. Man, if you were not paying attention to this Auburn team, you better be now, because they just do not have a hole. I think Dylan Cardwell is one of the best defensive big men in the SEC, and he comes off the bench. I mean, we've been talking about Ole Miss having 40 minutes of rim protection. I think Auburn has the better 40 minutes of rim protection right now. Just an absolute complete performance from Auburn. You can't take anything away from them. I know it was a poor performance from from Arkansas, and they have a ton to work on. I mean, Musselman didn't even have anything to say in the press conference. Said we were horrible everywhere. There's not really much you can say about it. It was a poor performance. You got to give the credit to Auburn. They absolutely dominated.
Yep, just dominant.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, look, we talk about depth, and you need depth and all that. Like Auburn's easily one of the deepest teams in the SEC. One of the deepest teams in the country.
I
When
was
you
just
think
gonna say
about
that.
just, yeah, I mean, really, how many guys they can play and the production they get out of all these guys, and yeah, I mean, man, it's like I said, Arkansas. Sorry, I'm probably not gonna be picking you in a lot of games like this until there's a clear turnaround. Auburn, I'm probably not gonna be picking against you anymore in these kind of games because it's just doesn't make sense. By the way, I did tell some Auburn fans we're going to bring out the bag of shame on today's show. But again, Chris is not on the show. He is the owner of the bag of shame.
Yes.
So we'll have to have Chris wear that when we do our power rankings, either on Monday or Tuesday. Because yeah, we'll bring out the bag of shame for us all picking Arkansas. But Auburn looking good, looking good. So.
Yeah.
Both fan bases, Auburn or Arkansas. How about let us know in the comments. What are you thinking about your team right now? Because I put that tweet out yesterday. I'm like, reply with a GIF, and boy, you want to talk about the difference of visual GIFs from both Auburn and Arkansas fans. It was quite a scene on Twitter yesterday. But all right, let's talk about this next one. Alabama 78, Vanderbilt 75.
You were
much
all
closer,
over this.
much closer than the experts anticipated. But let me just tell you, there's a reason I reeled off all those, numbers, because I just, for whatever reason, I think there is like a law in Memorial Gym that Alabama cannot score more than 80 points. Because it's just, I feel like it's been a long time since that happened. Even the games like I talked about, 77-62, 77-67, like it's always works out this way for Alabama. And again, if you go back and watch our preview, I spent probably way too much time talking about this and just the history of Alabama basketball at Memorial Gym. It's just not been favorable for the Crimson Tide. So I'm willing to chalk some of it up to that, but I also want to point this out. I think it's clear that Vanderbilt is getting better. And I mean, the difference is that you're having other guys step up. Jason Rivera-Torres goes for 20. Look, that's what we are saying about Vanderbilt. If you're going to have a chance to be competitive in the SEC, you have to have other guys that can carry the load beyond Lawrence and Mannion. And, those guys combined for 36, go figure. Like, that's what you expect from those two. But it's just getting more production out of everybody else consistently. And if you do that, they're going to have chances to hang with a lot of these teams. And I felt like this was kind of a game where, once again, it felt like Alabama had no business making this game as close as it was. But I think you credit Vanderbilt for that. You credit the Memorial Gym curse for Battle of Alabama, I guess. I mean, what else do you say? And I don't know, man. I look, am I going to, say, all right, I am all in on Alabama as the SEC champion after a 3-point win at Vanderbilt? No, I'm not going to do that right now. But I still think you could see a lot of good with Alabama here. They hit, 12 threes, but they just turned the ball over a little bit too much. That they gave Vanderbilt a few too many good opportunities. And again, like we said, defensively, if you have some of those lapses and you just give teams easy opportunities, that's just the way this thing works. And keep in mind here too, something I want to point out. Alabama scored 33 points in the first 10 minutes of the game. After that, they scored 45 in the final 30 minutes of the game, right? So maybe just chalk it up to one of those SEC game one performances. And for Alabama's dungeon of torture, essentially, playing at this gym for them. But I also don't think we can just come out of this and say, what happened to Alabama? We got to start crediting Vanderbilt because the Memphis game was there, played well against Dartmouth. I know it's different competition, but played well here and had a chance to win this game at the end.
Yeah, I think this is much less of Alabama is not for real and much more of, geez, Vandy is starting to get their mojo back a little bit. Lawrence, Mannion, and JRT there, Jason Rivera-Torres, are playing phenomenal. You got to give it to them. I would like to see a little bit higher of an assist rate. 6 assists for the team to 9 turnovers is a little bit too much isolation offense. But you got to give them credit on defense. They forced 16 turnovers. Mark Sears with 6 turnovers. That's his most in Alabama uniform. All of last year and this year, 6 turnovers is is his high. So you got to give credit to the Vandy defense there, making things uncomfortable. But I do also think it was just a little bit of that opening game jitters, opening SEC play jitters and whatnot. But hey, you got to give credit to Rylan Griffin. There's a lot of people that were out on this guy early in the season. Over the last 3 games, 15 points per game, shooting just under 44% from 3. It's exactly what you need from him. His defense is very important out on the perimeter. Still don't really know what's going on with the conglomerate in the front court. I mean, I think we've kind of seen the back court settle down into that 4-man rotation of Estrada, Sears, Griffin, and Wright, which is as solid as it gets. But the front court is still just a huge conglomerate of all those 6'10" and above guys. So interesting to see how that shakes out if the rotation gets a little bit thinner here down the stretch, or if they just keep playing, a conglomerate of big guys and let the guards really just take control of the team. Either way, though, I really just moving on from this game, I don't want anyone to be like, oh, geez, Alabama is not good. Alabama is bad. If you watch this game, you saw it was their sloppiest performance offensively after that big start. I think they got a little bit complacent, and Vandy ain't scared of no one. All right, Stackhouse is not scared of anyone. They're gonna fight, and that's what they did. It was a hard-nosed SEC opener. Don't take anything away from either team here.
Road games again in this league are always they're always interesting, right?
Yeah.
You get one extreme like this, feels like extreme if you just look at it on paper and compare
Right.
the teams. And then you get the Auburn Arkansas example, right? And then you get like the wild Kentucky Florida type game, and and then we're going to talk about one here in a second where it's like you get one just comes out of nowhere where the underdog wins, and it's like it's just like that's the way it works in this league seemingly.
Yep.
And so interesting results like that. So all right, let's move to this next one. Road team went winning this one. Tennessee 90, Ole Miss 64. That look you see on Max Barr's face is him realizing that his Rebels have now lost a game in the 23-24 college basketball season because it is their first game that they've lost. And unfortunately, in the pick 'em, I said, hey, Max, give me Ole Miss in the points here.
I took them too.
Well, I did take Kentucky ×2. That was my double pick, and so at least I got that one. But which that's another thing, me getting into why I thought Kentucky was a 4-point underdog, 3.5. I'm like, man, that just was, I don't know where that came from. But anyways, on to this game. This was, again, we talk about just kind of a step up in terms of competition, but I more so to me, it's the Tennessee effect. And it's just, again, I think that you look at this from this standpoint, and this was just Tennessee being Tennessee. The defense early was just kind of forcing Ole Miss to have some issues, although Ole Miss corrects that. And, what was it at half? It was a 9-point game at half, something like that.
Yep.
And so, but you just felt like it just continued to be that same thing where Ole Miss was not going to get anything easy. And that's what Tennessee does to teams. They don't allow you to get anything easy. Tennessee came out, hit 11 threes here. They were very efficient on offense. And I know, the stat you'll probably go a little bit further on, just dominated the boards. I mean, in every way, Tennessee just completely dominated the rebounding part of this equation. 19 offensive rebounds. Just was. I think, like, obviously, if you're Ole Miss, not what you want to see. Tennessee fans, exactly what you want to see, because they left no doubt here in terms of this is how good we are defensively. But oh, by the way, for everybody that talks about how improved we are on offense, like, here you go. Like, here is one of the reasons why. Like, Jonas Adu, 24 points in this game, 10 rebounds, double-double for him. Zeigler with 17, Vescovy with 11. Connect only has 8 here. But I think that's the point we've talked about. Is like, Connect can be the guy that takes over a game and maybe has the highest upside offensively of anyone on this team, but they just have so many other guys that can contribute. And I think that is why, again, we're as high as we've been on Tennessee, and frustrating for Ole Miss, I'm sure. But man, this was a thing of beauty for the Vols.
Okay, Blake, hear me out. Hear me out.
Here we go.
No, I'm joking. This was a dominant win. Dominant win. You can if you're trying to look for positives for Ole Miss, you can say that the first 19, 20 minutes were a close battle, but Tennessee missed a lot of open looks from three, like a lot of open
Yeah.
looks from three. They were getting just quality shots, and Ole Miss was having to work their tail off just to get a shot off. Wake up call for Ole Miss, 100% a wake up call. But you have to understand, I think this Tennessee team just solidified themselves as a top 3 team in the nation. Like, no doubt. Jemai Mashak's offensive improvement has been insane for this team
Yeah.
because of how good he is defensively. Now he's adding in a few threes a game. Oh, it's just exactly what you want to see. The rebounding battle, I mean, you mentioned it, just dominated by Tennessee. Very disappointed with Musa Cisse's effort physically. You're back-to-back defensive player of the year in one of the best conferences in the Big 12, and you're just getting bullied around. Take nothing away from Adu and Awaka. They're phenomenal, but man, I really expected a little bit more physicality from the Ole Miss front court. But geez, you watch that second half and you're just like, this Tennessee team is unbelievable. I mean, if Zakai Zeigler was even just a shade of himself in those 3 games in late November, I think you're looking at maybe 2-1 in those 3 games rather than 0-3. So, geez. Ole Miss, I mean, I saw so many people yesterday on Twitter just going, "Oh, I saw this coming from 3 miles away. I knew this team was terrible." Blah, blah, blah. God, come on, give me a break.
Rule number 1, Max, of Twitter: don't tweet. I learned that yesterday too. I'm like, well, I don't tweet a lot, but when I got back on there yesterday, I'm like, wait a second, I remember why I don't tweet a lot sometimes.
Give me a break. I don't think anyone in the nation could have gone into Tennessee yesterday and came out with a win. So, is this a wake up call for Ole Miss? Do they have some stuff to work on in the front court and rebounding? Most definitely. But is this a top 3 team in the nation in Tennessee? Yes. Also, yes. So, next up for Ole Miss, I mentioned it with Florida. That game on Wednesday is just huge. Both of these teams have, Todd Golden hasn't been able to win big games. This is one he needs to win on the road here. Cannot fall 0-2 for the Gators. And next up for Tennessee, you go to Mississippi State. Now, that's a Mississippi State team that does not want to fall 0-2 either. So both of these teams have huge games coming up. But geez, hats off to Tennessee and Zeigler and them just because amazing performance.
Yeah, Tennessee was really good here, and like you said, it's I'm not ready to just discount Ole Miss just yet because I think that was just the perfect storm having to go play
Yeah.
that team, and you've just not seen anything like that to this point in the season. So we'll see. 'Cause it's a very interesting game, which we'll talk about the Florida Ole Miss game here coming up this week. So, all right, on to this last one, which we talk about just ridiculous results in SEC play and how this league makes no sense sometimes. You got that right here because we did say LSU was going to be better with Jalen
We
Cook,
did.
but none of us, and yeah, if you're keeping score at home, we all missed this one too.
Yep.
Which I don't know how I don't know anybody out there who's picking LSU. Just for the record, unless you're an LSU fan, there's no one out there that was picking LSU. I'm just being honest here. LSU wins by 15 in College Station. Now, how did we get there? Well, for starters, there's a new team that is taking the trophy of potential worst 3-point shooting team in the country. And A&M's not quite there yet, but they're getting there. 26.6%. They're now 351st nationally. Mississippi State, of course, was the team last year we kept dogging on, and they wound up being the worst 3-point shooting team in the country. A&M goes 5 of 28 here from 3. Brutal. Got nothing essentially from the 3-point line. But the even bigger problem is that they go 10 of 31 from inside the arc, 32%, against an LSU team that has been better defensively than offensively this year. But still, it's just like, what? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Because remember, let's keep this in mind too with A&M. They have beaten Ohio State on the road. They've beaten SMU on the road, who also is not a bad team. They beat Iowa State, who I know Max is not all in on Iowa State, and they just lost to Oklahoma. But they almost beat Houston. Like the number one, what is going on here? This makes no sense. But then you look over, and it is what Max has been saying. Max has been beating the drum on this, and we've all kind of come up like they are just LSU, just a different team with Jalen Cook. Whether he's scoring, whether he's giving other guys opportunities, they weren't that impressive offensively here. I mean, they only scored 68 points, right? But defensively, A&M doesn't make shots. LSU takes advantage of that. LSU wins the rebounding battle, which I also would maybe. I mean, I know LSU has size, but that's something else that I maybe wouldn't have expected. I don't know, but help me make sense of this one, Max, because, I mean, again, if anyone out there was picking LSU to win the game outright, show your hands, because I just did not see this coming into the game.
Well, hey, Buzz Williams said it in his post-game press conference. He said, if I'm an opposing coach and you ask me, what should we do to beat Texas A&M? It's only one thing. Do not let them rebound the ball. That's it, because they're not going to shoot. He said it himself. He knows his team's one-dimensional weakness there. And so that's exactly what LSU did. They did not let Texas A&M hit the offensive glass. And that was the difference in this game. Cool little note here on Jalen Cook. You got to throw the first 10 games out, is because this is a completely different team. Like, it's not even this. They're playing a completely different pace. The first 10 games of the season, LSU only had 2 games where they finished with a total of 70 possessions or more. The past 4 games where Cook has played, every single game is 70 or more. So they're playing a completely different pace, a completely different style. It's a new team, and you just gotta understand that and toss out those first 10 games. And you can now see the openings offensively that are available for Jordan Wright, and how the offense opens up for him. I mean, it just changes everything. We really just gotta, me too, personally, have to change our outlook on this LSU team, because it's a new team. They game planned perfectly for this Texas A&M team, went to their place and beat them at what they do best. And that's as impressive as it gets. So you're going to be seeing a big change in my power rankings for where I have LSU, because you just have to be results based. And I mean, look at that second half against Texas too. They turned a corner. You can tell they turned a corner in that second half against Texas. And this is a new team. I mean, that's all I can say.
Yeah, it's again, they're just different, and
Yeah.
they play Vanderbilt at home on Tuesday. So great opportunity to start 2-0 for
you go.
LSU, and then they go to Auburn after that. So Battle of the Tigers could be interesting, depending on, again, if LSU wins that game. Auburn's got A&M at home, so winnable game. Yeah, maybe a battle of the 2-0 Tigers coming up next Saturday. But yeah, great win for LSU. A&M back to the drawing board, because that was just a bad performance. And here's what I want to finish with on this game. Oh, by the way, A&M loses that game. Next up, at Auburn, home against Kentucky, at Arkansas, at LSU. That's their first 5 games.
Woo.
So by putting themselves in this 0-1 hole, not ideal, because realistically, they're probably going to be the underdog in, I mean, all but one of those. Because how could they not be the underdog at LSU, right? I mean, because we just saw what LSU did. So, like, they may be favored at Arkansas. But
if they are favored, it's only going to be by a basket.
Yeah. But again, that's dependent on what happens with Arkansas the next couple games too.
Right.
So, man, that was rough for A&M, because remember, we were projecting this team as a top 5 team, which at the time there wasn't a whole lot of reason not to, because they had not played with their full team, and get Radford back, and you're saying, all right, well, maybe they now you gotta figure some things out, because they got a tough stretch coming up here schedule wise, and still just looking down the rest of their schedule, they still got Tennessee twice. So a lot of interesting games left for A&M, and they're gonna have to turn this thing around. But huge for LSU. And anyways, Max, that was our opening day slate in SEC basketball. Picks wise, I think we went 3-4. Because I think we all had the same picks, right? Did we any of us pick differently on any of these games?
I don't think so. We all had Texas
Yeah.
A&M, we all had Tennessee, we all had Alabama, we all had
All
Arkansas, we all had Missouri, we all had Kentucky, and we all had Mississippi State.
Wow. So there you go. So we go 3
I'm
and
making
4.
sure
So
that's not happening next week.
no, next week it's not happening at all.
Nope,
I'm gonna purposely pick against you guys. If any of you guys pick the same one, I'm just like, no way. We're not doing this anymore.
nope,
We learned our lesson on slate 1. It's not how you start, it's how you finish.
right?
And so we learned our lesson. We're not all picking the same anymore. So none of you guys are talking me into these picks. So Auburn fans, like, let you know, Max and Chris, they tried to pay me. They tried to, they basically paid me to pick Arkansas. I didn't do it voluntarily. So
Nope.
no, I'm just kidding. We had some fun, and again, we do enjoy the interaction with you guys on Twitter. I know a lot of you are
Yeah,
like, hey, we watched the channel and you were wrong or you're right, and it's always a good time. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. So anyways, what did we learn on day 1 of the SEC? Who knows at this point. Expect the unexpected with SEC basketball. I think that's what we learned, Max.
yeah. I would say you never know what's gonna happen here, but I think the main takeaway, and I think the team we have to give the most credit to is got to be Auburn. Just
Oh yeah,
congratulations on a phenomenal performance. You really that was something special there from the Tigers. So hey,
yep.
gonna be a wild ride.
Power rankings, we'll see. I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of movement in our power rankings this week. Could that involve Auburn potentially moving up? They've been number
Maybe.
3, consensus 3 for like the past month and a half.
Yeah.
Do they move up? We'll find out. We know some teams are moving down, so that means some teams are moving up. So we'll find out in this week's power rankings. If you want those, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well. It always helps us out. And again, we appreciate you guys watching as always here at Southeastern 14. We don't say it a lot, but again, we do really enjoy the interaction.
Yeah, we do.
It is a lot of fun. We are half serious sometimes when we talk about our picks and everything. And it's like, hey, we just enjoy doing this. Like, we do this for fun. Like I said, if we were doing this with the intention that we were going to be right every single time, or that we were just we would not be doing. Max and I'd be opening up shop in Vegas. Like, we'd just be like, hey, everyone, we can see the future. Hey, here you go. But no, we do enjoy the interaction, whether YouTube, Twitter, whatever. So we appreciate you guys. And you're always fun this time of year, especially as we now get the conference play started in SEC basketball. So again, hit that subscribe button. Power rankings on the way. We'll have our previews for all the other SEC games this season. So hit that subscribe button, and we will talk to you guys again here soon at Southeastern 14, presented by Bet Online.